anybody out there who is thinking about doing this, or who is thinking about like, oh my God, I feel like so and so about my music production, and am I really the only one? Well, we're here to tell you that you're not. And hopefully Megan's explanation of how she worked through her struggles will help you and will inspire you as well, which is why we want to go live. So we're going to dive right in. Megan, first of all, just kind of give us a little bit of an introduction, like who are you, where are you from, what do you do, in music and in life. Just give us a little bit of a rundown.
Sure. Well, I'm Megan. My DJ name is M Daly, so I go by that. I'm a DJ, and I'm now an aspiring music producer. I just recently started back in June of this year, but I've been DJing for about 8 years now. I'm hitting about my 8-year mark. But it's been something I've wanted to do my whole life. So um, yeah, I work as a teacher. That's my day job. But music has always been my main passion and kind of like my main goal. But, you gotta also pay the bills. So also, I forgot to say I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. So I live right in the city in Boston and teach here as well. So
Okay.
that's my deal.
Remind me again, how long have you been teaching in total, like your total amount of teaching years?
So it's actually kind of weird around this, actually about 8 years. It's now, I started DJing and teaching at the exact same time. I don't know why. I used to be in business, so I did have the whole business corporate jobs for a few years after I got out of college. And then I changed my career to becoming a teacher. And then I think maybe at that time, it just kind of like, since I was already changing something, it was easy to just be like, I'm becoming a DJ as well.
Yeah,
So
so you've basically been combining the two for about 8 years now.
yeah. hmm
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that easy. And I assume that anyone else out there who's, a music artist, a DJ, any other creative, is probably facing the same challenges because let's face it, we're not all, we don't roll out of bed one day and become famous and make money from our passions. It takes so much time and
Yeah.
you got to pay the bills.
Yeah, for sure. And so tell me a little bit about like right before we started working together, what you were struggling with. Let's just start there in relation to your music.
Oh yeah. I think that I was not feeling as though I had the time to dedicate to what I truly wanted to do. And I let the stress of my day job get to me so much so that I just felt paralyzed trying to dedicate any time to music to the point where I really actually was like, I guess I just can't do both. And whatever. Well, I guess I'm just gonna have to. I don't know. I just had one really awful night. I don't know really where it came from or why, but it was bad. I just was like, I actually thought at one point, I'm like, maybe I should just quit. Why am I even doing this? I mean, this is so much work. This is so overwhelming, and we're also in the middle of a pandemic too. So I mean, everyone's feeling the stress of that. On top of the fact that they have to still do their jobs, and worry about a pandemic. So there's just so many factors going on. And yeah, I kind of felt hopeless at that point. And it was funny that I just happened to see your creative block challenge on Facebook. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to join this. This is like the universe telling me like, let's fix this. So
Yeah, so you still, even though you had like this moments where you were thinking, I'm just going to quit, like what am I even doing? You still deep down had like these feelings of like, I just can't, I'm not ready to let go yet. Like otherwise you wouldn't have been feeling whatever it was that you're feeling when you saw my challenge and then decide to actually join, right?
oh, 100%. I mean, this is something that I felt electronic music in my soul when I was a kid. And that's when I didn't have any friends or family that liked that sort of music. I just had found it kind of just randomly. And I was like, I love this. So I know that it's always been with me my whole life. And it's been kind of lonely because I mean, I, I have to say over here in America, I, there's parts of electronic music that really still haven't taken off. Like maybe it has, especially with trance. I remember being like, I should be in Europe because that's where trance is popular. Like, so it's always been my true passion. Like it, and you're right. I was just deep down inside, I knew I was like, all right, well, this is just kind of silly that I'm, that I'm saying this, but sometimes we just get to those moments of hopelessness and just like such sheer frustration that it just causes us to shut down. I mean, I've had so many of those, so
Yeah.
it's hard balancing everything out.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, that's also the human experience, and you're
Mhm.
definitely not the only person like in music who is also balancing other stuff, whether it's a day job or
Mhm.
family or whatever it is that you're doing. You have a life, right? Like you have a life
Mhm.
to live, and yeah, it's not easy to balance, as you say. And so then you got to the point where you found my challenge, and then what happened for you? Like then what you felt like, why did you decide to sign up for the Beat Creative Blocks and Music Production Challenge?
Well, also, I mean, this is also such a music production specifically is I'm new to it. I wouldn't say I'm new to DJing, obviously, but those are two different animals. So it's one thing to mix things and make mixes, and it's another thing to actually really create the music that you're playing. Um, and I've always been extremely creative, but I just even in the name of your class, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. Are these blockages, and how do I how do I get past this? Because I'm still so new. I don't want to give up. I mean, I just started and I know that I can do this. I know I can be good at this, but um, I just figured it'd be good to hear it from um, somebody else and somebody like you offering helpful advice and just different ways of changing your mindset. I mean, I think that was key for me,
Mhm.
that you offered was just really looking into your mindset.
Yeah. And so I remember during the challenge, you were really active and you shared a lot of your experiences. Can you remember like one of the biggest takeaways or one of the biggest like aha moments that you had during that challenge?
Hmm. I would say, I mean, I I really loved the fact, and I don't know if I can say can I say what we did together, or do you want me to really just talk about the challenge?
We
No.
can dive into the intensive. Uh,
Okay. Well, I just love those mantras. They're posted, like they're literally right in front of me right now. Like, I just I don't know. I loved how we really delved into mindset changes. That was an aha moment for me because
yeah.
I already work on trying to change my mind in all other areas of my life. I already do self-care and self-help books and stuff. So it's like, well, why not apply that to music as well? I mean, it's all interconnected.
Hmm.
So it's not like I felt like I was compartmentalizing music. Whereas, no, this fits into like the whole thing going on in your brain. Like, you have to be confident. You have to believe, even if you don't. You just have to pretend, until it starts becoming a reality. Um, and I think that's what really hit me is when you started really saying that this is a mindset issue. This isn't just like, oh, you can't do it and you give up. It's this is something having to starts in your mind. And that was my aha moment. And
Yeah.
I think that ties into like the mantras and all that stuff that we did together.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did on the strategy call when we started the intensive, was
Hmm.
really look into like very deeply into where your specific blocks were coming from, because I mean obviously we can like generalize and we can find like common denominators among producers and DJs and just human beings, but it's really important to really like get into your personal experience so that we can really understand what exactly was going on for you, what was coming up for you, and literally tie it into the other areas of your life. Because this is also something that, obviously, as a holistic coach, I put you as a human like front and center, and we look at all of the areas in your life that may or may not have an influence on your music and vice versa. And that is what's so important, to tie everything together. And I remember we on the strategy call, we really like were identifying what exactly your mental blocks were and what limiting beliefs you had and what limiting stories you had been holding on to for such a long time. And I remember like I still remember vividly that you also said like at some point that you were thinking about quitting music because you were very hard on yourself. Do you
Oh
remember?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that it's been plaguing me since childhood. And yeah, I mean, I continue to work on it every single day because it sometimes I think it's gone away and it creeps back in. And sometimes sometimes these things creep in subconscious. Well, most of the time they creep in subconsciously and you don't even know you're doing it until somebody else actually helps you point it out and helps you identify it. And I think it's really important to give things a name, to kind of say it out loud and give some like, just be like, okay, this is my perfectionism like happening. And this is my lack of confidence that's going on right now, or like, so it's like kind of taking things and like, this is what's going on. Oh, okay. Now that I know that this is what's going on, now I can fix it. Now I can heal it. I think that's the most important step. So it was, sometimes you can't do it alone, I mean, so I think a lot of people want to believe they can do it alone, but sometimes you just need somebody else to be like, it coming from it, like you're a very, subjective point of view. I mean, you're not there to judge. You're not there to, nitpick. It's more like, oh, let's just identify what's going on and now let's change it. And I think it sounds so simple, but um, a lot of people don't do that. They just kind of stuff it down and keep it and hold it down.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah, and you know that I'm all for like finding the smallest intervention that can have the biggest impact on your
mhm.
life. Like it doesn't have to be difficult. And in fact, it's mostly like important to actually look at the simple, easy things, the things that everybody will probably say, oh yeah, mindset, oh yeah, mindfulness, oh yeah, sure. But then actually, applying it to your life is like a whole different thing. And you just mentioned that the mantras that we actually rephrased during the strategy call that we did for the intensive. Um, I remember afterwards you sent me a photo. You had like really, you had them written out and then you put them up in your workspace and you sent me
Yep,
a
yep.
photo. And I thought that was so amazing because, it's really, it can really go from, I think in your case, it was like being very hard on yourself and like you should
Mhm.
be able to do this. I remember you had one that said like, I should be at this every day. And I also remember at some point you said like, oh, actually, I think it was like a day 1 or day 2 of the intensive, and you sent me a message on Boxer and you said like, well, actually, I just kind of spontaneously sat down and kind of dabbled around for half an hour and nothing really came out of it. And I could hear you kind of go back into like being hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember saying like, hey, this is great. It's like a practice session. And you
And
were
I
like,
was like, oh yeah, you're right.
whoa.
Why does everything have to be so formal, and just the fact that you were like, it's just a practice session. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Let's keep
Yeah.
it moving. I don't know, like, why am I just taking this one moment in time and making it so much more complicated than it even really needs to be? So even just it's like just having someone to tell you that, like just the fact that you identified just what it was was made all the difference.
Yeah, and also I said this to you, and I say this to all the people I work with in an intensive. Like I could easily just give you a list of mantras and say like, here,
Mhm.
practice them. but I really like to put in a lot of work in identifying the ones that will ring true for you, that you will be able to formulate in your own words. And that way it will be so much easier for you to start believing them. And even so, even with you having your mantras in front of you could see that your mind was still going to, oh, I dabbled around for half an hour and nothing came out of it, so this must be shit or something. So it still
Yeah.
helped you to have somebody say like, no, it's just a practice session. Like, forget about it. It's fine, you know?
Exactly. So a matter of fact, but especially if for those of you out there who are like me, who are just like overthinkers to the max, or just like overanalyzing. I mean, overanalyzing, overthinking, perfectionist, like just like so hard on myself. It's sometimes you just need to take a step back and be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's just kind of characterize it for what it really is. And then it's like, oh, like a weight is lifted, and sometimes it can just be that simple.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so
so
once we really worked through a lot of that mindset work, and really we made sure that you practiced it, and I also gave you some other exercises. But once you really start working through that, once you got those results of like kind of having that weight lifted and feel like, oh, it's actually not all that formal or all that bad, what happened next for you? Like what went better for you?
I think once I don't know, I guess it's just once that weight was lifted, I was able, I don't know, I just felt like I wasn't just so chained down. I felt like I kind of liberated myself in a way. Um, and with liberation just comes, I don't know, this sense of lightness and the sense of, oh, okay, I'm not bogging myself down with all these negative emotions and thoughts. Like now I can just do what I'm meant to do. Um, so it was like I felt as if it was just much easier for me to sit down and not feel like I was over analyzing my every move, or like my every track on Ableton. Like
Mhm.
it just felt a little bit better, a little lighter, if you will.
And I also remember you said at some point that you felt like you didn't have enough time. So we also worked on creating time for you to be able to sit down and to work on your music. And once we figured that out, you actually started using like your preparation blocks for schoolwork to sit down for doing music. And all of a sudden you realize that, hey, actually, I actually do have time to work on
Yeah,
this. You
I
know?
think you got to be creative too with your time management. I mean, unfortunately, it's not every day I can use those blocks, but on the off chance, then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use this break to just do what I love, even if it's just 40, even if it's just 30 minutes. It kind of gives you this burst of energy again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know it's time management is a struggle. It really is. But when you kind of start looking at exactly where you have extra time, you kind of have to analyze what you're doing on a daily basis. And then you're like,
Mhm.
oh, wait, I do have some time. I can fit this in here.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's true. And also in the sense that it gave you energy, and it's also energy that you needed in order for the stress of your day job not to really overrun everything for you, right? Because like
Oh,
this is
yeah.
not the way you want it to feel day in, day out. And I remember
100%.
also having nights where you were laying awake thinking about things that were like going on at your job that were really, overpowering, and obviously in a lot of cases not in your control. And
Hmm.
so this is also where the things that we did together worked. And I remember that I gave you an acceptance exercise. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that. I still use it, so it's
Awesome.
great. Honestly, it helped me fall asleep one night because I forget what was. I don't know, there was just a million things going on, and it was just all happening on one day. And I just could not sleep. And I put my, my guided meditations on. I tried counting back from 100 or all the like stupid tricks that you try to do when you're falling asleep. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pull out this acceptance exercise and try it. And actually, it really worked. And I was like, oh my God, this really works. Wow. Okay. I'm going to use this more. So that was very helpful too.
Yeah, because we also had established that you at some point said like, actually, I didn't even realize that I needed sleep, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even though like I remember you saying that night like you didn't get a lot of sleep, but at least you managed to fall asleep and sleep easy for the time that you got. Like
Exactly.
obviously that's super important. Like when you're tired, everything is just so fucked up. So
I
you
know.
really need to be like at least well rested enough to be able to go about your day. So that's definitely super important. And
Yeah.
so in terms of results, let's talk a little bit about what you worked on. So you worked on one track during our 1 week intensive of working together. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what was it before us working together, and then what happened when we started working together?
Well, I feel that before we started working together, my anxiety was just out of control. It really was. And that's something I struggle with just in life and in general, which I know most people out there struggle with anxiety. But I mean, I know some people know those days where it's just so out of control that you feel paralyzed, and leading up to before our intensive, I was at that point where it's like, I just felt paralyzed from anxiety. Um, it debilitated really. And also too, I had fallen, I'm in a music class now, at Berkeley in Boston. It's just an online class. And, I was just falling behind on that because I just felt I'm like, I'm just trying to do too many things at once, and I can't do this all, but I want to. I felt I couldn't, and then the anxiety creeps in, and then you just don't do anything. And I think once we worked together, it kind of just smoothed everything out. My anxiety levels went down, and then I just put things in perspective and just kind of went through with the week in a way that made me feel more confident about how I could continue with this.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the week, I was like, okay, I now know what it feels like to have all this stress mounting, and there's always a way out. There's always a way out of it. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, even when you don't think there is. It's always going to be okay in the end. My co-teacher said, I actually love this quote. He said, it's always going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end.
Oh
And I'm
yeah,
like,
I love
oh,
that quote.
I like that one. He always would say that. Um, so after we came out of that 1 week, I completed my track, and now I kind of held on to it for a little while. And then actually this week I ended up just feeling, you know what? No, I know this girl. She's amazingly talented. She's a mastering engineer. I'm like, I'm going to send it to her. Let me just get this out there. So to spruce it up a bit, but I did finish what I had set out to do that week with you. So it was really nice. It felt good.
Yeah, I remember you also said like it's not necessarily to me about like getting it out there. It's more about, and you describe it as like, I have the meat and the potatoes down. And then
Yeah.
you actually felt like you felt inspired to play around with it a little bit more. I remember you said something about like, oh, I found these really like cool like voices and like in space
Yeah.
samples that I wanted to use. And it
Yeah.
became like so much more fun to you. And you also
Mm-hmm.
actually managed to catch up on your music course because of that, because you realized like, actually, I am doing this, I am advancing. It's maybe not like in the way that I had originally imagined, but actually I'm doing the work. So, in the end, it wasn't that overwhelming anymore, and you actually had fun, which was the most important thing, because
Right.
you had mentioned that the whole process had become stressful, and that's not what we wanted for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it feels much better. Thank you. I'm still, I mean, not, it's still a struggle, but I think that just walking away with at least a couple more strategies, I mean, can make all the difference. Sometimes it's just a simple strategy that could change your life. And um, I mean, life's a journey. So we're going to have to work it, there's no like simple fix. You just have to keep working and being mindful of what you're doing. And when those negative thoughts come in, like, how am I going to get rid of this? How am I going to change my belief system and so I just think it's a journey, and it's helpful when there's people like you out there who can show um, others how to proceed. So it's very helpful.
And how did you feel like with the overall experience? Because we had two calls, one at the beginning of the week and one at the end. And then in between, we had, you could reach out to me on Voxer. How was that for you?
Oh, I really liked the fact that I could reach out to you at any time on Voxer. I thought that was a really cool aspect of your intensive, because I just felt like I was never really alone. And it's nice that to me, I I regiment things. So, I'm so rigid sometimes, and I hate that. And I just, it's like the rigidity sometimes kills me, like with the overthinking and all that. So the fact that it wasn't rigid, it wasn't, oh, well, we only are going to talk here and here. It was more like we could just keep it an organic flowing experience. And that was very helpful for me, because that's the type of person I am, that I strive to be, to get rid of that rigidity. So it was nice to just keep it flowing and keep it moving. And you responded right away to mostly all my messages, and despite the time difference. So, because we're 6 hours
Yeah,
apart.
I was
So,
gonna say it's like
yeah,
6 hours, and it never really felt like, you know.
yeah, I know. I know. So that was cool too.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I also liked it. And I remember you saying like, "Oh, I don't want this to stop. This is so fun." Yeah. And
it's
also what
nice.
I absolutely loved, one of the most like beautiful moments for me was when you said, I think like halfway through the challenge through the intensive or something, you said something along the lines of, "Oh my God, I actually got up this morning and I felt good, and I could get really addicted to these good feelings." And I was like, "Yes, yes, that's what we want." That's a good kind of addiction.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, someone who has their demons, I mean, it's like that. I have that addictive nature as well. So I mean, that's just something I'm working on in life too, is just getting addicted to the right things. Because that can be life changing as well. So it's like waking up and feeling amazing can be an addiction as well, with good addiction at least.
Yeah.
Still working on it, but
That's good. I mean, with every new level comes new types of challenges, but at least
right.
now you have your go-to tool that you can implement whenever, in this case, creative blocks come up, or even just a mental block, like in general, like, oh, wait
Mhm.
a minute, you now know how to shift mindsets, and you now know your negative stories, and your negative Nancy stories, so you can just turn
Yep.
them around, and you can just keep applying this like for the rest of your life if you want to, if you choose to. So
Of course,
yeah,
absolutely. I feel
awesome.
like I could. I mean, it was really helpful, and I really thank you for that. It really helped me. It just really helped me change the musical aspect of my life, and that that it's so important to me. So I don't want to be wallowing in my sorrows in music, because that's my happy place. So it was great. It was very helpful.
Yeah. Also because you mentioned at some point over the summer this year, this COVID year 2020, you
Mhm.
actually then managed to, take a break and, go like find these really cool outdoor locations and do live stream DJ sets. And I remember you telling me like, oh my gosh, like I had a glimpse of what my life could look like in
Mm.
this industry. And it was so like so amazing. And I would love to have that life. And I was like, yeah, go get it. Like this is also
Oh,
why we worked on these things during the intensive is like how can you find moments in your day to already make that life a reality? Like you don't have to sit around and wait for like this super sudden like 180 in your life. You can just already
right.
start turning it around, right?
Exactly. It's funny because it was the first, I mean, like I said, I've been a teacher for 8 years, and everybody's like, oh, the summer's off. That's great. But in my whole career of teaching, I had never taken a summer off because I couldn't afford to. So I would always teach summer school, and it would just be a straight full year of just very it's just very stressful work. And so this past year, I got a point in my teaching career that I was like, okay, I think I can swing it. I think this year is going to be the year that I finally just use the summer, use the advantage of being a teacher to um, see what it's like to just kind of enjoy my life musically. And it was, yeah, it was incredible. It was definitely something I just needed to do. I had to do it for myself. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was a glimpse into like, whoa, what if this was all my life,
Yeah.
which you never know.
Well, you
So,
actually did have like another one of those moments during our intensive week because you were invited to do a live stream and you decided to make it into
oh,
this beach outdoor, pull out that generator again that you've been invested in and
yeah.
like you did it again even during these crazy COVID times. So it's clearly possible for you.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I think that's a good thing to keep reminding yourself at the end of the day to anyone out there listening. That I mean, it sounds so cliche, it really does, but anything really is possible. You just have to keep chipping away at it. And sometimes it just feels so overwhelming. Sometimes it's like, I don't even know like how could this even be possible? But then you take those moments and opportunities in your life, and you even just that tiny glimpse that you were saying, you never know what can happen. um
Yeah,
but
clearly, and this is your proof. Like, look at what you've done
right,
during that 1 week. Like
exactly.
clearly it's possible. And I also thought it was cool that I got to tune in and
Well,
like
thanks.
watch you do your thing. That was fun. Like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good to see. And also it's nice because then I actually, the people I work with, I can sometimes I tell them like, I was working with somebody and she was doing this and that. And it's like people can borrow from other people's
Oh,
experiences to believe for themselves that it's also possible, because sometimes you just don't
100%.
really see it, right? And then you're like,
Yeah,
oh, wait a minute, if other people can do it, like I can do it too. It's possible, so
I know. And even it's like not all of us live these cushy lives where we can just like wake up and do whatever for the day, and most of us have to work. Most of us have one, two, three jobs, multiple jobs. And but the thing is also most of us have deep rooted passions that aren't paying our bills. And
yet.
yeah, yes, exactly. Yes, I like that. Um, and it can be a lot of work, and it's definitely a grind, but I do feel that and there are days where I'm just like, oh my god, I'm getting like older and older, like what am I doing? I'm not in my 20s anymore. Like, but then I'm like, no, you know what, I don't care. I don't care. Who cares? Because if you're just doing what you love, even if it's just for that little moment in time, I do feel that more experience start kind of attracting to you as you put it out there to the universe. It's just law of attraction.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
so I think
absolutely.
that's just another cool thing that
Yeah.
I've been noticing over these last few months.
Yeah,
And
especially.
you helped me notice it even more, just that 1 week
Mhm.
brought in, I was like vibrating good feelings out, and then good things were coming my way. So
Yeah, and just by
that makes sense.
sometimes giving you a different experience of the things that you were experiencing, just by saying, for example, this session where I said like, yeah, it's just a practice session. You're like, oh, like even just that, it's really all about the meaning that you give to things. And if you can just give them different meaning and put it in
Right.
a positive light, it just all of a sudden changes your whole day.
A
So
hundred percent.
yeah.
100%.
So one last question before I let you
Sure.
go.
Yeah.
What would you say to anybody out there who would be interested in doing an intensive, but who is still a little bit on the fence?
Oh, I would highly recommend it, because if you look at it this way, like, maybe somebody would be like, oh, well, it's just 1 week. But just like we had said before, is that it does, one moment in time can change somebody's life. It doesn't even, like, it could just be like a 10 minutes, like one tiny little moment can change your whole life for the better. Um, and I just think that, especially if you are feeling, well, especially right now, I mean, a lot of people, myself included, are feeling pretty lonely. I mean, I live alone right now currently, and I'm sure there's even people who don't live alone, are feeling those feelings of loneliness. So I think that if you're in the same boat or similar boat as me, um, a week session with somebody who can just lift up your spirits and show you and give you just some guidance, specifically like tailored to your needs, because it's not like you specifically tailored the week to my needs. It wasn't like this umbrella thing. It was specifically tailored. um that I mean I would highly recommend it, and I think that, um if anyone's out there thinking of it, like, just do it. Just go for it. What do you have to lose? I mean, it's a friend, a new friend too. So
Yeah, we already decided where we want to party together, right?
yeah,
We're in each other's parts of the world.
yeah, I know. So yeah, whenever COVID's over, I'll see
Yeah,
you out there in Belgium.
yeah, hopefully very soon. Okay, well, for me, it was also such a pleasure to work with you and obviously to have this conversation. Thank you so
Oh
much
yeah,
for doing this. I really
no
appreciate it.
problem.
And yeah, I will let you go. If anybody who is now watching live or replay has any questions for Megan, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and either Megan or myself will be happy to answer them for you. And yeah, I wish everybody a lovely weekend coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye. Okay, I just stopped.